Faster than a fraudulent performance measure, stronger than a misplaced decimal point, able to leap complex compliance requirements at a single bound. It's Super Auditor! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Auditors Save the World, one audit project at a time, where we bring you thrilling tales of daring audits and brave financial reviews. Here, our heroes don't wear capes, but they do wield the power of empirical evidence. Brought to you by the pros at Yellowbook-CPE. In each episode, we interview those legendary auditors who have truly rescued the day. Stay tuned, listeners, because this is one story you won't want to miss. And folks, don't forget to subscribe to our show in your podcast app of choice. And now, here's your host, Lita Hart-Fanta.
This time, our audit hero's mission is personal. The citizens of Denton, Texas wanted the truth about something near and dear to their hearts, the treatment of their beloved pets. The audit was tough, and the evidence was hard to face. Madison's audit team bravely witnessed euthanasias firsthand, ensuring no detail was overlooked and that the evidence they gathered was sufficient to support the audit report. With the community waiting, the pressure was on. There was no time to waste. They knuckled down, combed through key processes, and delivered the findings in record time. But uncovering the truth was only half the battle. Madison worked alongside the city manager, making sure that every one of the dozens of audit findings led to real action. Justice wasn't complete when the audit report was issued. It was in the change that followed. Join us now for another meaningful and instructive episode featuring Madison, a true audit superhero. Are there a lot of problems at Animal Services?
Yes, there were.
Oh,
Yeah. We issued 34 recommendations, which is the most we've ever issued
wow.
for one of our audit projects, at least. Yeah. But we only spent 3 months doing it, so it was just a lot of work in a really short amount of time. We kind of started showing up about the same time that the city manager was like, something is wrong here. And so I've been working really closely with He's an assistant to the city manager, but he operates almost like a fixer where he'll go in for 3 months somewhere and be like, let's do this, this, and this, and this, and fix it, and then moves to another place. And he was there for the animal services audit because we had that audit on our schedule anyway. It was already approved, but then right before we started it, there was a big media blow up because they euthanized an animal before the 48-hour hold period was over, and then the owner came to get the animal.
God, that is such a classic story. You know how many times I hear that story?
Yeah.
That is unreal.
Yes. And it certainly wasn't the first time that had happened.
Wow.
But it was the first time it really blew up. But they had already been on our radar because in 2023 there was a complaint from a citizen or somebody who was on the Animal Services Advisory Board. She was talking to a council member and she's saying animals aren't getting fed and they're underweight and there's all these issues here. And so at that time, I did a non-audit service basically that was pretty narrow in scope regarding canine care in particular. Can we prove that they're being fed? What happens on intake? Are they getting the vaccines they need? And then looking a little bit at euthanasia. And, we found that no, we can't prove they're getting fed the right amount. They are supposed to be doing the right vaccines, but there's pretty sketchy if they're it's all documentation stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we issued that, but it wasn't an audit, right? So we were here's some advice. Here's the information that council requested, basically. And then because of that, I was like, we definitely need to do an audit. And then it got approved, but then the media blew up. And so that made the audit pretty tense. And because in response to the media blow up, the city manager was like, well, we're going to have a consultant come in. But then the public was mad about the consultant. And there was some issues where some of what we said and some of our public statements, the media was like, that's a lie. And so then we worked with that consultant a little bit when she was on site, and then we kept doing the audit. And then there was another consultant that came in right at the end, which I think ultimately was helpful because one of the big issues was the department director. She used to be an assistant director of parks and she got made the director of animal services. Doesn't have any animal services experience. So she was relying on her staff under her and just didn't really know what she should be doing. So, we issued all these recommendations, and I think it was really good to have that second consultant come in, because I think if that hadn't happened, I think she would have been like, I don't even know how to fix these things, basically. But now she has some like, here's how we do it. And,
Wow.
so I think it's going to be, I'm hoping, maybe this is too much. I don't know.
No, this is good.
So we issued that audit on January 7th. And during that meeting, I was kind of like, I recommended doing a follow-up at the very beginning of next fiscal year. So like October of 25. But the city manager was like, no, we only need 6 months. And I was like, I have to change my audit plan to do that. And they're like, no, do it. Which I was like, 3-month difference is not going to, but okay, sure. Whatever is your pleasure, right?
Yeah.
So now we're going to come back in, I guess, June or July. Anyway, I'm just worried. But they did create a really cool like barcoding system to help track like daily care activities. And that I really think is like kind of revolutionary, not only for our animal shelter, but like other animal shelters could use it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that's really cool. We'll see if they're able to kind of sustain that.
Oh, so that's something that your city invented? Your animal services people came up with that, and it wasn't something they bought off the shelf?
Right.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's big time.
I mentioned that guy from the city manager's office. He actually coded it
Oh.
using Airtable.
Oh,
And so, so he developed the software and got it going.
wow.
And then he was like, okay, do it now. Basically.
So the barcoding, I assume, is on, like, the collar of the dog or something?
It's on the kennel sheet.
Kennel sheet, okay.
Yeah. And so they're supposed to, if they do anything with the animal, they scan the barcode. There's like a form that they go through, like, does the dog look healthy? Did I take it for a walk? Did I feed it? And it logs all that information. And then I don't know exactly how we did it, but in the Airtable, it aggregates up. And so then supervisors actually have visibility into like what their staff are doing, and if they're doing it for all the animals. And it also helps because one of the issues that we had noted in the audit was like, they would do a health assessment on intake, but if an animal was there for a long time, one, it was really hard for them to know because of the way the old system worked, and there wasn't really a process to be like, well, how long has everybody been here? And two, even if they did know that, there wasn't like after 4 weeks, we're going to recheck on them, basically. And so I think it helps with like, is this animal doing badly? Yes, it's been noted as like needs attention twice in a row. We really need to figure out like an intervention strategy, right? So
Wow.
So I think the new system's gonna be great. I didn't have any, we said you need a system, but I didn't really necessarily invent it. But
Right.
one of my big concerns, a lot of the management basically got fired or has been let go or retired or whatever, that were there, except for this director who's been there for a year or two. And at one point we said to them, and this was it wasn't super in the report, but we were kind of like, I don't know if you need a director and a manager because they're basically doing the same function. And then the consultant kind of came behind us and was like, you probably don't need both of these. You could reorganize the manager position, of course, and make it have a little bit different job responsibilities to make it a little more effective. So we'll see how that goes too.
So, how many animals do they have in there?
They can hold, they don't know exactly how many they can hold. Another thing that we were like, you don't have a maximum capacity. And they're like, no. And we're like, maybe you should. And they've like really pushed back on that for some reason. But they can hold usually about 280 animals. So it's a pretty large shelter.
Wow. 280 animals. Wow.
Yeah.
And you're a pet lover because we just.
Right. Yeah. I have 4 dogs. One of my dogs I did adopt from that shelter.
Wow. That would be such a tough engagement.
Yeah.
Being an animal lover and hearing the stories.
Yeah. And we reviewed the euthanasia records, and one of the lead on the project like watched several, I think about 8 or 10 euthanasias occur, because we were kind of like,
no.
because we knew the documentation was spotty, and so I was like, we need to review these to see if like what they're recording is actually what's being happening. And I was like, and I'll do that if you want. But she was like, no, I can do it. Yeah, so she did that. One of the problems we ran into with that procedure, though, was that they only kept security footage for 31 days, I believe. And so, like, by the time we got to do it, that procedure, right, they were like, well, we're changing stuff.
Mm.
And so I have like, I'm like, it would have been great if we could have gone back even 3 months or watched the euthanasia that occurred. That was it was the big public blow up, but we weren't able to do that. They were understaffed,
Mhm.
and there was no accountability system, and there was no real like clear direction. So it was like we would go on site and they'd be cleaning kennels, and we'd be like, well, who does this and who does that? And they're like, well, I do it this way, but they do it that way and they do it that way.
Mhm.
And there was no like supervisor coming in to be like,
Mm.
this is the way you should do it. Did you do all the kennels?
Mhm.
And so the accountability piece, it was just non-existent. And so
Mhm.
when we came in and started being like, you have to you have to hold your people accountable for their performance and like what they should be doing. One of the supervisors, I think, was basically like, I'm not going to do that. And so
Mm.
then they're like, then you can't work here, basically. Which, happens.
Yeah.
So it was a mess. It was a big, big mess.
Wow. Big mess.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. That just breaks my heart. What did you learn doing this project that you felt like was positive for your team? You said it was the most findings you've ever had. And looking back on it now, what would you have done differently?
I think it was a lot of work that we were asked to do in a really short time
Okay.
because of kind of the pressure from the public.
Okay.
And we got it done, but it meant we had to scope out some things or limit our scope on some things that I think there was probably more there. Like,
Yeah.
in particular, we had this contract with a veterinary service, and we had findings there because contract management over it was non-existent, and there was some weird like
Mhm.
verbal agreements on we'll pay this special surgeries thing that's not, there was some stuff like that, and we basically were like, we know there are issues here, they know there are issues here, we're going to put in here what we know is an issue, but we weren't able, in part because of the lack of control too, of like we weren't able to be like, here is like the dollar amount, or we weren't able to get as detailed as we would have liked to.
Mhm.
And there were some other things that we just like couldn't include. Like they had a foster program and a volunteer program
Mm.
that we were basically like, those things are just lower risk.
Yeah.
And so we only have so much time and we're going to focus on these other things.
Yeah.
We definitely think if we could have spent 2 more months
Mhm.
working on that audit, but we had already spent 800 hours just in the like 3 months that we were doing
Yeah.
it. So
And it was 3 people on the project?
yeah, so it was a lead auditor or my lead auditor. We had an audit intern, and then I was working on it as well.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So the pressure to get the project out fast, you cut out some things that you thought were interesting. But I mean, that probably ended up being better because you would have had 33 more findings. That would have been a 66 finding report, which is just unmanageable.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and like I said, we don't ever, typically we might get to 20, but we have like 10 findings in a
Yeah.
we try not to spend a lot of time. We try to be efficient, right? Of like, we're going to do it
Yeah.
this way, highlight the things that they're doing that are good, hit the stuff that's rough, and then, and move on. Cause I don't want to spend a year doing something.
Mhm.
I have a small staff.
Right. Because you just said you're working on the homeless situation is what you're working on now, and
Right.
lots to cover.
Yeah. So, and we have another project going. Usually we have 2 to 3 like real audit projects and then 1 or 2 follow-ups going.
Is Denton like 300,000 people?
It's about 150,000 people.
Okay.
We have about
Including the students?
well, people who live there, right? And so UNT,
Okay.
we have 2 universities, UNT and TWU, and they're both
Oh, yeah.
have pretty big commuter populations, so they don't all live there, but they're obviously large sections of our community as well. But yeah, we have 150,000 people. The city employs about 2,000 people, a little under.
Okay.
But we also are full service, including having an electric utility, which has a power plant,
Whoa.
which is very unusual.
Yeah. Wow.
But lots going on.
So that's on your agenda too, I'm sure. Utility.
We actually we released an audit covering electric system operations
Mhm.
in June, I think, last year. And that was my audit lead who did animal services did that project. Wasn't the project right before animal services? Yeah.
Yeah. Man, cities are so amazing in the variety of activities that they're involved in.
Yeah.
And how many projects can you get done with your team of you got 4 people total, including the intern? Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's me. I have 2 senior auditors, project managers, right, and then an intern position. We usually do probably 7,
Wow, 7 projects a year?
like maybe 6 new projects, and then we usually get a handful of follow-ups out as well. So
And when you do your annual plan, you do I guess a global risk assessment looking at all the activities that the government's involved in. And this time animal services came up because of the press coverage. I guess in the past it didn't come up, probably because it's not a big dollar amount.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Yellowbook-CPE, the heroes behind the jumbo bundle of self-study courses. With a 1-year subscription, you get access to over 170 hours of top-notch CPE content. Dive into thrilling tales of agile, IT auditing, fraud, and internal controls. All courses carry NASBA's quality seal, so you know they've got the superpower of trustworthiness. Just click the link in the description to sign up. And now, back to our story.
I'd had animal services on my proposed project list because usually I take to council, here's 10 options, pick 6, right?
Okay. Okay.
And I'd had animal services on there for 3 years at least,
Okay.
probably before it got picked. My proposals, right? I do a risk ranking to try to give them some idea. And it was lower, but it was on there. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
what was actually really interesting was in 2020, they had already given me direction on the plan, but then I did that non-audit service, and I
Mhm.
had the thought, like, are they going to say, like, we want you to look at animal services this year?
Mm.
But then they didn't.
Well, because the other things on the list, I'm sure were
Right.
more compelling
Are
to
also
them
important.
in the moment.
Yeah.
Just to kind of inform our audience, what other stuff was on the list that they chose ahead of animal services?
Did fire prevention. We did an audit of pedestrian and cyclist safety.
Pedestrian site, okay.
We did an audit of fleet,
Fleet.
pretty much
Mhm.
doing like fuel card management,
Okay.
recreation facility operations. We did solid waste operation and body worn camera usage.
Body worn camera. Oh, y'all have a local police force
Yep.
and you audited the police.
Yep, we do.
Oh my gosh. You need more staff, girl.
I know. I've been trying to get, I
5
know.
more
I've
people.
been trying to get a staff auditor, but the timing has just not been right. We do a lot of work for the amount of people that we have.
You do. That 7 projects is a lot.
And I didn't even talk about all the follow-ups we issued
Oh, yeah.
because they're much shorter, but
Are you following IA and Yellowbook or just IA?
just Yellowbook. Yeah.
Just Yellowbook, okay. So technically you don't have to follow up, but you just do it as a management
Right. I think
monitoring.
it's not. I find that I care about the city getting better.
Yeah.
Right. And so, if you just issue a report, yeah, that probably happens.
Mhm.
But it's way more likely to happen if you also then say, hey, I'm coming back in 2 years. And if you haven't
Mhm.
done it, I'm going to tell the city council that that's true.
Yeah. Right, right.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not required by Yellow Book standards and certainly not to the extent that we do. Because I know there's a lot of Yellow Book shops who'll do follow up, but they'll send out like a letter, like, tell me how it's going.
Right, right, right.
But we go in and we use Yellow Book standards to do our follow ups. So
How long have you been with the city? How long have you been there?
I started there in January of 2019
Okay.
as a staff auditor, and then I was appointed to city auditor in August of 2020.
Oh, it's been a while, 5 years.
Almost 5 years, yeah.
Yeah. Now, were you auditing before that? Before you came here?
Yeah, I was in College Station
Oh,
for I guess 3 or 4 years before I came to Denton.
as a city auditor or you worked for the university?
At the city, I was the assistant city auditor there.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was an intern, and then I worked my way up.
Oh, wow. Well, any advice you would give new auditors, Madison?
New auditors. I would say I think one of the things that we're not very good, I'm sure you've heard this before, that in general we're not very good at is like client management, right? Of like, I think you can get into a place where it's very adversarial very easily.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because they're scared.
And I think that that is something that if you're going to be like really successful, you need to be able to make them feel comfortable to actually
Mm-hmm.
do what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most important to me is that it gets better.
Right.
And so if you you can issue a recommendation all day, and if nothing changes,
Everybody's just a big waste of time.
it's not that you haven't done anything, but but it's a lot less.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I think is what has really helped me with my career is like focusing on like I want to make sure that the work that we're doing has impact,
Mhm.
and that one of the ways to do that is make sure that you have good relationships with management, so that at the very least try to do what you say.
What do you do? What do you personally do? Because you're very personable, very friendly, very easy to talk to. That's just your nature, or did you have to work on that?
Um, Both. Definitely, definitely benefit personality wise. Yeah, I think I know. When I sometimes coaching people through interviewing and stuff, right? It's like well, one of the things that I say a lot is like just let them talk.
Yeah.
Like people like to talk about what they do, and you don't know what they do.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, you might know some. You should know some so that you can know if they're like completely just bullshitting you.
Right,
But
right, 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 right,
by the time you get there, but
right,
they'll tell you, especially if you just let them talk. Typically, they'll tell you like stuff that's wrong and things that you should look at,
right.
and I think we all say this, but I always am kind of like, well, how can we help you?
Mhm.
Because ultimately what we do is give advice, um, but we do it in a very public setting, right?
Yeah.
That's the transparency, accountability
And in
piece.
writing.
Right. But that advice can be really powerful in that setting.
Yeah.
And so I try to, in every audit, be like, here's what we're finding. Let's talk about the recommendation because I don't want to just issue something nondescript that you're going to be like, that's not what we need. Like, as long as we can come to an agreement on here's what the risk is, let's talk through like what would be helpful to get you the support that you need to fix this issue.
Okay.
But yeah, trying to talk to new auditors about like don't cut them off, don't don't
Mm.
have prepared questions,
Mhm.
but also be willing to like be like, well, tell me more about that, or like
Mhm.
or even just talk about it's kind of silly, but just making jokes about like oh the city or the weather, to trying to start out,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, making it a little more personal.
And you've saved the puppies. You've saved a lot of puppies
I guess. Yeah.
and kitties and
That's true, that's true. One of the things that which this was unusual for us, but one of the things we did with that project was when we presented, because we present all of our reports directly to the city council. We presented our audit findings, and then they basically came and said, because audits are historical to, mostly.
yeah, sure.
And they came in and they said, since the scope of the audit, basically, here's the things we've done in the last 3 months to kind of start addressing these issues, right?
Great.
And that worked really well. And I felt like, I hope at least that it gave the council and the public comfort of like things will actually change, because one of the issues that we found in the audit, right, was like, well, there had been this 2018 report that nothing ever happened with. Then we did our 2023 report that nothing really ever happened with.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
I think one of the concerns from the public was like, how do we know that anything will change?
Yeah.
And of course, from my perspective, I'm always like, well, we're going to come back,
Yeah. Yeah.
and do our follow up. So another reason why I think that's really important. But
I agree. I agree it's important. It's just not you don't have to.
right,
But it does consume, since you're doing it according to Yellow Book standards, it does consume your resources that theoretically could be used on another project. But you're right, in your environment, especially since you said that the 2 previous reports on animal services just sat there.
right.
Nobody did anything with them. Follow-up is necessary.
Yeah, and I think the office had been around and then got dissolved in like 2010-ish maybe. And then I guess some stuff happened, and there was a charter election, and they were like, you have to have a city auditor continually.
Mm.
And so that happened in 2017. So I think there has been this kind of like that we're moving out of, right, this like stagnation of like, well, it worked last year. We're just going to do it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, even just a lot of our first passes through all these big operations are like, you need to have an SOP. Nobody's going to know what they need to, you need, you need to have
Just
training,
basics. Right.
basic stuff that's like
Right.
why you need to have formal ways for doing this, because people don't stay for 50 years now. And even if they did, if you should have those things. And
Yeah.
and we just, Denton is growing just so quickly, and it's really a difficult like growing up period, I think, for the city of like, we're
Mhm.
not a small town anymore, but we still want to think we are,
Right.
which is an issue both like organizationally for the city, but also just culturally for the community. So
Yep. Yep. And you're right on the edge of a major metropolitan area.
yeah.
So your population is very educated.
Yep.
And works in a professional role. And so they have higher expectations than a lot of small towns, I would expect. You've got 2 universities.
Yep. They're very engaged.
They're probably like, what do you mean?
Yeah. They're very engaged community.
Things are not working in animal services because they're engaged. Yeah.
Which I love about the city.
Well, you're doing a great job.
It makes it a challenging environment.
They're watching.
Right. Yeah.
They're watching and they're smart.
Mm-hmm.
They're smarter than the average bear.
Definitely wasn't in the news this much in College Station.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but College Station is kind of rural.
Right. It's a very different environment. Just even the things that they're concerned about. I like to tell this story because I think it's kind of funny, but when I got to Denton, one of the first things on the agenda that I saw was like they were having a discussion about the tree canopy. And I just had this like, we would never have talked about the tree canopy in College Station.
Never.
That wouldn't have even crossed anybody's mind.
No. That's sophisticated. Actually, my kids were thinking about going to College Station, going to school at Texas A&M, and that was their big complaint.
Mm-hmm.
There's no trees here. But I know that's not why they don't talk about it.
Right.
It's just that that's not the way they
think.
That's just not where their head is. Well, this has been a real pleasure talking to you. And I thank you for saving the puppies and the humans and I thank you for that.
Well, hopefully that's what'll happen. We'll see.
Thank you.
That's what follow-up's for.
Go pet your puppy.
Thank you, brave listeners, for joining us on this adventure. We appreciate your loyalty. Take a moment to subscribe and share this podcast with all your audit allies. And don't miss out on Yellowbook-CPE's upcoming webinars. Because every superhero needs their training, and Yellowbook-CPE offers continuing education that's relevant, convenient, and as thrilling as the fight for justice. Until next time, audit on!